What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Big Bike BMX. My name's Isaac, and I've got my friend Craig, I've got my friend Gilbert, and I've got my friend Adam here, and we are going to talk about BMX. Now, Craig and I have been hosting this show for a good 2.5, almost 3 years now. Craig, it's like 3 years now.
Yeah, man, we're coming at you. If we're not there already, yeah, we're coming up on 3 years.
Yeah, and so
Crazy,
here's the
dude.
deal. It's a long time, right? So the deal is, Craig and I, we love old BMX bikes. I love 80s bikes. We love everything about it. And sometimes like we'll get asked to be judges in bike shows and things like that. Now, I'm just going to tell you right up front. First of all, remember this. Like, this is not. We're going to talk about custom bike building tonight. We're going to talk about ways you can do that. We're going to talk about advice. This is like we grabbed our friends that we like to chit chat about or in chit chat with BMX about. So this is not like the definitive panel, at all. We didn't get everybody in bikes to come in and share their opinion. This is four of your BMX friends hanging out, talking about BMX bikes. That's what it is. So just let's level set. It is just the four of us chit chatting. This is just our opinions. And your opinion doesn't have to match ours. That's okay. Just remember that you like bikes, we like bikes. Okay. There's your level set. So Craig and I were chatting recently because he went to a bike show and he judged some stuff. And, we started talking about it. I'm like, man, that's kind of hard because, I saw the bike that won. And then we were talking about it. I'm like, I think I would have picked this other bike. I don't even remember what it was. I was like, that other bike was super dope, dude. How'd that not win? And Craig, it just started a debate, right, between two homies about like which bike is better. I've been having this debate since I was 13 years old, and we were arguing about GTs and dynos and Haros back in the day, right? So, and if you had the ugly fork leg dyno, you were on my hit list, man, because I'm like, I ain't jumping that thing. It's already pre-bent from the factory, right? Dynos are dope. We all know that, but man, that was my one thing I could easily trigger my friends with, and that guaranteed that we would at least hang out for another hour before I saw, like, as soon as I saw my friends, like, man, I'm getting tired. Your dyno forks are bent, bro. Boom, we were there for another hour to chit chat and argue this up. So that's what we're doing today. Now, Craig, you want to either like, well, let's introduce our guests first and let's get right into it. But can you introduce our friends that we're chatting with today?
Yeah, man. Hey, appreciate the opportunity to do that. You guys check it out. Like Isaac said, we're here to talk about bike builds, and we got two guys who are on the show with us tonight. We've got from Evil Alloy, we've got Mr. Adam Mark. Adam, what's up, brother?
What up?
What up to
All right,
Adam?
now
And go, you want to
I'll
introduce
introduce Gilbert.
Gilbert?
Yeah, I'll introduce Gilbert
Gilbert.
because he's from Phoenix. Yeah, I'm proud of this guy. So when I first started coming back to BMX, there was two places or three places were doing rides around Phoenix. Copper State BMX, Gilbert, and then we had Average Joe's was doing a ride, and my other friend Dave from Cactus Cruisers was doing rides. So I met Gilbert right away, and imagine me, dude, like Craig. I pull up like I'm all going to a little local ride out. I'm all excited. Got my wife with me. I pull up. I think I got my PK. Super just psyched. We're gonna go for a bike ride. And I don't normally ride. He lives over by the stadium, the Cardinal Stadium, and that's where we met. So I'm like, where are we going today, dude? He's like, we're going to the stadium. I was like, this is gonna be dope, right? And because it's Phoenix and it's 100 billion degrees, we had to meet at like 5 o'clock a.m. on a weekend, right? And it wasn't even work, but we were all happy to be there. And I pull up, dude, and Gilbert's got banging bikes, dude. It's like, I'm used to seeing like the ride out bikes, right? Just stock, maybe got, like me has a stem, you know what I mean? And everyone, I know you just pictured the Batman meme of like, I just customized my bike and Batman is slapping Robin and it says, you added a stem, right? I know you just thought about that meme. But yeah, I show up with just a stock bike, right? I'm psyched. And then you just see these like hard hitting bikes. And I'm like, dude, Gilbert's here. And so I love Gilbert's rides. And the thing that I love about Gilbert is that he rides his bikes, right? So Sunday or Saturday nights when we're out riding in downtown Phoenix or Tempe, Gilbert, his family, he brings like a posse with him. Like he brings all the neighborhood with him, loans of bikes, I think. I don't know. But he shows up with a squad riding baller bikes, and it's the same bikes that he's showing. So Gilbert, thanks for coming and talking. That's why we got you here. And then Craig, I just like talking about BMX. So
this whole thing for me, like with bike, like we've talked about it on the show, and Gilbert and Adam, check this out. Isaac and I are, or at least I'll speak for me, and I know I can speak for Isaac on this. We are fans of BMX bike builds, but we are not bike builders. Now, we customize our bikes, don't get me wrong, but we are customizers for performance. We like good quality parts and things that enhance our experience and our rideability on a bike. Now, with what Isaac said, we go to bike shows, we see, immaculate banging bikes, dude. We're talking top of the line, everything, top of the line frames, you name it, from the hairs on the knobbies to the grips, right? So when we got into this conversation, it was just like, what, and I don't want to put too much out there, Isaac, but what you were alluding to was like at a bike show, especially if you're judging, Isaac and I were like, how do you pick the best bike? What is, let's say you've got different, of course there's different, and for those that haven't been to a bike show, obviously you have different classes. You've got old school, mid school, new, cruisers, you name it. You guys could probably come up with all the different categories, but it's like in each category, what makes the number one bike or the best of show or the best of category? And Isaac, like when we were talking about that, what was the like biggest thing between what we were talking about? Remind me.
So my point was like, hey, dude, I like the brand new blingy bikes, brand new, like, or new old stock or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that looks great. Like, I like that showroom. Like, oh man, I remember walking up and squeezing that gyro and judging the mechanic because the gyro slapped. And so I'm like, man, I've been grooming myself to be a bike judge since I was a little kid, walking around the bike shop. Like, hey, these brakes are jacked, bro. What are you doing over here, right? Because you just yell at everybody because you can't afford the bike. So you're like, I'm just going to troll these people. So I like that. Craig, he had a pretty good argument because he's like, I think this Survivor bike that has a little bit of paint rubbed off of it is way more, it's worth more emotionally, and it's been through more, and it's like it has that patina, right? And so now we're getting into that debate, and we're like, okay. So then I said, bro, let's stop. Let's call Adam. Let's see if he's down. Adam's like, okay. Hell yeah, I'm down. Let's go. And then I was like, bro, I've got Gilbert is in my next door. Like, he's in my next door, bro. Like, let's go. He's in my backyard. Let's do it. So that's how we got here. And so Craig and I will sit here and talk for 4 hours about classic bikes and what we like about bikes. But you two have a very distinct reputation. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Nudge, nudge at Adam. I love you, brother. But we love you, man, and we love what you guys are doing. And I love going over to 24, 26, 29 and seeing the builds in there. I don't always feel comfortable chit-chatting with everyone in there because there's some hardcore bike builders, and that's intimidating to me sometimes. I'll be honest with you. And I don't always see eye to eye with, like, that's a great looking bike. I'm like, it's pretty cool, but is it a bike anymore? I don't know, right? So, right? So here we go. What would you say when it comes to bike? First of all, folks like me that are coming back to BMX, let's start it here. Coming back to the big bike world, what is some advice? If I see these bikes, where do I even start, man? Because, like, number one, I'm just going to be real honest. I'm going to lay it out. I know that people like to custom build off of, like, Craig Turner's and Bassett's and, the Johnny's, like, custom frames, all of that. Here's the thing, dude. If I'm Johnny Nobody, I have no idea what what bikes Bill has for sale other than what I see on Bassett.com or the Bassett BMX site. So if I want to come into BMX, it's like you almost have to know, like, you have to know someone, and then you have to almost be like on the inside to even get like a new frame from Bassett. Is that accurate when you say it, or am I off base?
I mean, sort of. You just have to be, especially if it's a limited drop, you just have to know somebody or be on it to get the bike.
Yeah.
Because once they build them and they're all sold, then that's a wrap. So, yeah, yes and no. Like, you got to kind of just follow it. It's just like anything else. It's like a sneaker drop or, a Dixon drop or anything else. You just have to kind of follow it. if you want to get the bike. So for some of the more limited bikes, but yeah, you just have to be in the loop somewhat.
So like social media, right? So if you follow Bill's Instagram or Facebook, just like I do with Evil Alloy, like I see, like I could literally watch the progress of like concept, prototype, testing, stitches, more testing. Hey, this is good enough for all of us now, right? Because it's going to hold up to me. So that's the same thing. You would say go on social media, follow these folks on Instagram, on Facebook, check their websites. That's how you kind of get in. Would that be your best advice for someone like me that
I mean, you see a bike at a show or see a bike on a ride, and you just call them up. Most likely that bike has already been made, sold, and is done. So
Right.
like I said, some of the more limited bikes, not the ones that you see on his website. So you just have to pay attention. If you want one of those bad motherfuckers, you have to pay attention.
now here we go, Craig. This is a fun one. If I can one of those like swoopers that I see on the site, or well, Craig just like you always kind of just see like all random, right? You see his stuff, it's like come and go. So, but let's say a swooper. Can a swooper still win a bike show?
Yeah, for sure. I think I think it's all comes down to what you do to it. I know that the classes have been. I think Adam and I just kind of started talking about this the other day, kind of stirring the pot on one of the streams, just kind of like what it takes and like the categories that these are, to your point, kind of going beyond bikes now. Are they riders? Are they not riders? But the purple pinstripe one, what was that one, Adam? That one won one of the shows, wasn't it? The one Tom Schindler owns now, or owned. Yep. Yeah, that one I think took a show, and that was a swooper frame, or a Ronin, right?
So, I mean, kind of off topic a little bit. Before, it was any bike that you built, it depended on how you built it, could take a show. Like I was seeing when I first got into this, I was seeing Big Rippers win
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
But I feel like now, if you don't have a limited edition frame that they made 30 of, and you didn't gold plate and engrave it, like you're not even like people aren't even looking at your bike twice. So that's where my post came from a couple of weeks ago, was like it's time to add a category for those bikes, because how do you take somebody who, like I said, I've seen many times, I've seen Big Rippers that yeah, maybe it was full custom Big Ripper, but I've seen Big Rippers win shows. I've won shows with a stock SE 29-inch quad angle, basically stock, but like at this point in time, could I take my stock SE 29 2012 quad angle and go enter it in a show and even have a chance? Like, no, like not at all. So that's where the topic came from of my post, was like, hey, like it's time to make a category for these bikes, because everybody needs to be able to have fun and compete. What fun is it if you don't have 10 grand to build a bike? What fun is it that you don't get to you go to a show? Yeah, you put your bike in there, but like you're not even gonna have a chance in hell. Like like going into it, if you even think that you're gonna place against these bikes that people have put 10K into, you're fucking high.
Yeah, and we were talking about that too, Adam. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought up the other category, because the one other thing Isaac and I were talking about too is, should there be a super build category? Like, you're right, dude. You could bring in a flawless Big Ripper, a flawless bike that it's supreme. But like you said, if it goes up against a limited frame, a limited, it's chrome plated, gold plated, engraved, everything is super high end. Does that other bike really get a chance to compete with that super build in the same category? Because right now, from what I know, it seems like everything on a 29-inch, it'll be 29-inch cruisers, everybody in. Everybody's at the table. You got the whale, the guy with the big stack of chips. You got the dude coming in with the small stack, but he sits at the same table, right? So what do you guys think about a super category or a super build category? Like, should we now have categories like 29-inch cruiser, 10K invested and up, or How do you see it?
Well, yeah, so that's what I originally said was like, oh, we'll have the 5K and up category, but you could drop 5K on a bike and still be pretty close to stock. So at some point in time, it needs to be broke down into, so everybody needs to kind of come together. But at the same time, it depends on what show you go to. Yeah. So, like, let's say taking the heavy hitter show, you take the bike that won there and took it to Frogtown, it probably wouldn't have even placed. So, and vice versa, you take some of the bikes that were at the Frogtown, went to place at heavy hitters. So that's where it comes in that there needs to be a couple of categories added. Maybe, it's hard to put a dollar amount on it and say, oh, 10K and up, but there needs to be some rules set in place so everybody could still have fun. Because like I said, what fun is it if you put your heart and soul into your Big Ripper and you take it to a show and there's 20 bikes there that have $7,000 to $10,000 into them, and you don't even get a second look like that? It doesn't make it fun for anybody.
Well, and that begs a question for me for the next part B of my comment, is that if there is, like, say, a super build category, right, or a 10K and above or whatever, should there also be a rider category to where it's a build but it's a daily rider?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It better have dirt on the tires and scratches on the pedals.
Yeah.
Right?
No sandbagging.
Because that blows my
those
mind,
grips
dude. Like,
better
you
be
made a
sticky,
comment
too.
about, so you could put 5K into a stock bike, and in a competition, that bike's pretty much still stock. That blows my mind because I don't come from the world of build or bike builds, custom builds, and I respect it. And it's like, whoa, like that 10K, let's say the 10K was the ceiling, right? We just threw that against the wall. It's just a number. It could be a 15K ceiling next year. Or, like, people, once you give them a bar to jump over or to set, they are going to exceed that to take that trophy home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So from what it started, so we touched on this the first time when we did the podcast about me showing up with my stock rider that had 5,000 miles on it, and I powder coated it and threw a couple parts on it, and I placed with it, and that's what gave me the bug and made me want to actually build show bikes. But when we first started, it wasn't about just what your bike looked like, because again, if you guys remember, I told you when I built my swooper and I took it, I didn't even know, Craig. What are you doing?
Brakes.
Oh, he was talking about why he was getting.
I don't know. So I'd never even met Craig. I took my swooper, put it together the night before, and he came up to me after the show. He's like, hey, you want to know why you didn't win? And it was the brakes. The brakes pulled on one side, and they pulled uneven, and that's why I didn't win. People aren't even looking at that anymore. So you go to these shows, and they're like, oh, that bike looks dope. That's the winner. They're not checking chain tension. They're not checking grease on the chain. They're not checking air pressure. They're not checking brakes. They're not checking anything. They just look at it and go, yeah, that bike looks cool. That's the winner. And that's shit, dude. That's a shit way to judge. Because when, as Gilbert probably remembers, when we first started doing this, you could show up and look at all the bikes and go, damn, that bike's sick. That bike's going to win. But then when the judge hit that bike and pulled the brakes and wiped his hand and there was grease on the chain and dirt on the hub and dirty spokes, and like they mark all of that shit. Yeah. So that bike that everybody thought was going to come in and sweep the competition just lost 20 points because shit wasn't right on it. And I think that it needs to kind of start going back to that. Even those badass fucking bikes that are, let's call it the 10K category, they still need to pull the brakes, spin the fucking freewheel, wipe the chain, check the spokes. Like, it's kind of like a white glove. Like, you put a white glove on, wipe the chain, and there's grease on the chain, you just lost the point. Your chain's loose, you lost the point. One of your tires is low, you lost the point. Like, it needs to go back to that root style judging instead of just going, oh, dude, that thing's dope. He spent his last 3 months paycheck on that fucker and he wins.
Right. So how do they get to that point? Like, who's going to make that requirement or those requirements come back? Is it the big bike shows going, all right, check it out. We are going to be doing this year. White glove check. Your shit better be working. I mean, is that how this happens? Because there's really, I mean, let me know. Is there any type of structured, like, sanctioned body that does bike shows, or is it just the bike show organizer saying, this is what I'm doing and this is how we're going to judge it?
As far as I know, there's no sanctioned body. There are bike clubs and people that have been putting shows on for quite some time, BMX Society and shit like that. But we don't really mesh with them. They're all old school. They don't really even recognize our 29-inch bikes. You'll see a few 24 and 26s, but they don't even recognize our 29-inch bikes. They kind of laugh at them and call them beach cruisers. So I per se, I wouldn't say there's even a sanctioning body. But again, when we started doing this, that's how you rolled. And I think Craig, being one of the first ones doing the big bike shows, just took those rules from the old school bike shows and just implemented them into his shows. And I truly, even cars, anything, you go back to, like, you go to a lowrider super show and the same thing. Everyone thinks that this car is going to sweep it, and they look and go, oh, there's bluing on the headers, or there's a scratch here, or this or that. Like, and everyone, the car that everyone thought was going to win now just got knocked down and somebody else came in and won. So that kind of helps separate just looking at it and going, oh, wow, that guy spent $10K on his bike, he's the winner. Well, that guy spent $10K on his bike but doesn't know how to build a bike correctly, and his brakes are off, his chain's off, so on and so forth. Well, he just lost points, and now it's a real competition because somebody could come along that might not have had as sick of a bike but had all their shit on point, and they just swept the show by being on point rather than just having big pockets.
Yeah. What do you think, Gilbert?
Right, Gilbert? What do you think? What do you say about that?
What's that? You broke up? I think it all makes sense, man. I mean, I think when I started, just exactly what you said, it was one of the things that they really kind of looked at, and then just seeing the progression over time. It was the limited frames, it was this, it was that, and then it kind of, turned into the who's going to spend the most. Exactly, it broke down to money, not functionality, and that's where we saw it. Now you see these stands, before it was just the $20 stand off of Amazon, the Sunlight stand, and then it turned into these extravagant CNC machine signs that are chrome plated, gold plated, and all that. So now display goes into it. So yeah, we're definitely transitioning to a lot of that radical category that they did in the lowrider shows. And yeah, for sure, it definitely needs to kind of go to that, because to your point, I mean, everyone wants a piece of the pie, or at least to, feel that enjoyment. Like, I think it was last year I had my True Torch, built it pretty much like a period correct, but in the newer style and stuff. But I didn't enter in the show because I knew it wouldn't even compete, But if you looked at it and broke it down based off, and the people that were in that old school vibe, like, that knew exactly what the old gooses look like, then they came up and they're like, oh, dude, that's sick, blah, 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 and they were kind of ignoring those. So it kind of breaks down to exactly what Adam's saying. It's kind of subjective to what show you're going to, how they're judging, what they're judging, and all that. So, and to tell you the truth, I think that's a lot of times, well, I'll show my bikes, or I won't enter them in the physical show. I'll put them out there on display, but, just because, at the end of the day, that it goes to that, 10,000K bike, or who's going to have the engraving. I respect it for sure, man, but I mean, it's definitely, I mean, is it functional? Is it not functional? Those type of things. Is that brake going to pull all the way to the handle grip and you're going to go, nowhere, stop or anything like that, Yeah,
let me ask you this, Gilbert, because that's a good point, man. Do you, and I'll ask this to you, Adam, you can chime in as well. Do you guys, if you are, as bike builders, as guys who have entered their bikes in shows, are you guys more likely to enter a show if that you can like compete in a particular show because of the category, who's going to be bringing what bikes, or at least you think you may know, and more importantly, what about the judges, bro? Let's say that they're not checking the brakes and all these certain check boxes that you got to check. If you got judges, or do you guys ask who's judging that show? Because if it's so-and-so and so-and-so, and you're like, that dude likes Bassets, I'm going to bring my Bassett. Or does it even go that way where who's going to be looking at them? Or is it just
You rarely know who's going to judge a show.
Right. Yeah, it's come with what you brung, man.
Come with what you brung? Yeah, because I was thinking, like, if there's judges who go, man, this guy really loves chrome. He really loves custom engraving. I got a bike like that. I have a bigger chance than someone who doesn't know this. Does it get to that point?
I've never really, I don't think I've ever come across any time where they're like, oh, so-and-so is going to be the judge and you know ahead of time. And if so, I've never paid any mind to that. But I've never, and at this point, like, I've shifted my, all of my energy to furthering my company as opposed to building bikes. Like, I want to see, like, I can't build a bike and show up and vend at a show. Like, I can't. And that coupled with the 20 bikes that I already have, like, I feel like when I did the 2019, when Craig did the Triple Crown, and it was, you had to compete in all 3 shows, and then your points were accumulated, and that's how the winner was judged. That was cool as fuck, but like once, and not to sound like a cocky, arrogant asshole, but once I killed that, like, I'm like, what now? Like, I lost interest. I really, truly lost interest in even building a bike to compete in a show.
That's
What do you
fair.
think?
I mean,
Yeah,
and that's the thing I was going to ask you too about, what is the pinnacle? If it was the Craig's Triple Crown, and you get to that point, you take that, championship or whatever, what's next? What do you do with the bikes? I mean, right. Like, do you not down, I hate to say downgrade because I don't want to make anybody else's competition sound like it's less than, but at that point, do you take that champion Triple Crown bike and then keep going around to different shows if you still want to compete? Or is it like you said, Adam, like, now what?
I mean, for me, I built I went into that whole Triple Crown thing kind of soft, and the first show was here at my shop, and I brought a bike that I showed previously in 2018. I built a pink 2-piece Gary Turner, and I was like, it only went to one show in 2018, so that's what I'm gonna show for 2019. And I came in with that bike, and my buddy Scott was just getting into it, and he went all out and built this crazy mosaic anodized thing, and people were blown away by it, and he won the first show. So he was all pumped up, like, I just put the smack down on Adam. And that's when I was like, all right, like, I did come into this shit slacking, and that's when I built the black and copper bike.
Yeah.
And just
Came out
blew
swinging.
everybody's wig back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
But it's not like you take the bike, and it's not like, just using this as a reference. It's not like the Kentucky Derby horse winner now goes out to pasture, right? It's like, and it's not going to enter the local, track sweepstakes. What do you do with that bike, bro? I mean, is it at that point you go, I got to build a new one. This one's already done its job. Now I got to get a new project going.
So what I did notice when I was doing the show bikes is it's always that first wow factor when people see the bike, and then you bring it to the next show and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that bike. Mm-hmm. So now whoever built the next newest bike, everyone's like, oh dude, check that thing out. So before, like, Mark Darcy, he helped me out along the way of, like, when I started building bikes, like what to do, what not to do. That guy had this purple, I think he called it the Purple People Eater, and it was a 26-inch Gary Turner. And this motherfucker had every spoke nipple turned the same direction. Like, it was mind-blowing how clean and perfect and everything was painted. And he used to compete with it all the time, and he'd win over and over and over and over. But I think that, again, when shows started to evolve, and people would see something sick and they'd be like, oh my God. And then somebody else is like, oh, I'll top that. And it started becoming where, like, oh, that's just Adam's bike from last show. And it started to, like, evolve into, if you don't build a new bike for the show, that's just like last week's dinner leftovers.
Yeah.
Gilbert, what about you, man? Like, with your bikes? Because when I was out in Arizona and when I look at your social media, your bikes to me, and Adam, the same with you. You guys, you build the eye catchers, right? So are you finding out the same thing is going on at the shows you go to, if not the same as the ones Adams goes to, but like with you, what do you do when that bike is something that someone goes, oh, there's Gilbert's bike from last year, or does that happen to you? What's your experiences?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of like where you, exactly what Adam said, you build something different. I think I was in the transition. The Phoenix had just popped, and then I was like, oh man, the Bel Air just came out. So then I stopped everything I was doing on the Phoenix and then went to the Bel Air, So you're consistently, rotating them, and kind of touch on like, what do you do with the bikes after? Like me, I'm selective. Like I only can have so many bikes here, and then, those people that really like appreciate the stuff you went into them, those are the ones that, like, you don't see my bikes flip hands, like, so if I go and resell it, it's going to someone that I know that truly love that one, like my Goose. It's over in, I believe, Indiana or something like that. Someone that I know that's not going to be flipping hands and stuff like that, and they can respect the build and see those type of things. So, because I think at the end of the day, it's a work of art is the way I see it. It's something that, I had a vision, and I put my vision, to work. And then for other people to respect that, just like a piece of art, then they're like, oh yeah, you know what, I want to buy that art piece, and whether ride it or something like that. So that's usually like what I do, like my Manhattan, I got it, with David, and those type of things. And it's just those people that respect it, and I make sure that I don't sell it to those guys that I know that are going to be like, oh, I want to, go sell that frame and fork for $4,500, and it's someone that really kind of respected the build and saw the vision you saw in type of thing. But yeah, exactly. I mean, to that point, I mean, yeah, it's a tough one, man. I mean, it's definitely gospel what Adam's saying, man. When it comes to the whole bike thing, it's what do you do after? That's kind of where I'm at. Got the Bel Air going, and then the next show was, I think, the heavy hitters, and then you saw, how are they going to top that next build? And then that's when you saw everyone coming out with the engraving and then the stuff, which is great, man. I love it. It's great to see the blood, sweat, and tears, because I see the art that goes into it. I see the work that goes into it. Definitely love it. But then at what point, it's almost like that next high. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? How are you going to top it? I mean, now you're going to engrave, the chords. I mean, like Jake. I mean, Jake's the guru when it comes to powder coating everything, man. He'll make everything match everything, and when it comes to that, I mean, you got bolts and nuts and everything that ties in, and then like, what do you do? There's only so far you can go. And I think the other cool thing that we kind of got away from, they would transition from kind of like the original builds, kind of like Adam said, you walk up in the scene, you had these bikes, and then everyone started, there was that period where it was like the theme bikes, Scott, I believe, was it Scott that did the Monster Quad or the Monsters Inc. Yeah, so then you had that cool stuff where people were tying that in, and so then it's like, then you had Keith Ellis coming in with the Vans bike, and the original Vans bike before the SE collab, and the Bassett that I think Mark Zabrano owns now. So I think those type of things, and it's like, it's totally gone a whole different direction, which is cool, man. I mean, you get to see like everyone's different flavor on what they've added and stuff. Looking at even going to like the heavy hitter show, I think who took home the trophy? It was Brian, I think, with that Craig, wasn't it, with that Turner, the green one? I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His Bandolero 2.0, the two-piece.
Yeah, so that one, I mean, so then you go back to like, okay, so then it's almost kind of going back to that original. I mean, that was a clean bike, clean build, had, good color combos and stuff, but then you start like, okay, what's that?
The sticker kit on it was sick.
Oh, I know, some guy that does some good sticker kits, man. I don't know, he's been in the dark, man. I don't know where he's been, but yeah.
Let me touch back with Isaac real quick. Isaac, when you're hearing Gilbert and Adam talk about these categories, right? And back in the day it was, just bring clean builds, and things weren't at the height that they were now, like the extravagance. What do you think about them talking about $10,000 builds, or a $5,000 build still being kind of stock? Does that from where we come from, like the rider world, does that kind of just blow you away that that's just where you have to be to compete. And then like, you can see that it's just going to keep escalating, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, dude?
You guys, it's a trip to me because I love seeing these bikes. I love, like, I even kind of touched on it earlier. Like I cannot see an engraved bike and not go, dude, that's dope, cool. But at the same
Right.
time, I'm not, and I don't know whose bike that is, and this isn't a cut to them, but like, I hope you understand what I'm about to say. I respect the art, but like, dude, I don't know at what point some of this stuff stops being a BMX bike, and is now just like a like a sculpture, right? And that's the thing that kind of trips me out a bit because, and I mean this with the utmost respect for everyone that's in the sport. Number one, if you're a bike builder, even if it's not my jam, if you're into this, this is the coolest sport to be in, and I'm so glad you're doing this. There's some crazy stuff you could spend your money on, and so I'm stoked you're in BMX and you're helping build the BMX community. So I'm a little bummed out that there's nowhere for. It doesn't sound like there's a place for the actual like bike. You know, like it's a bicycle, and if you all just agreed on the rules that like, all right, whoever has the most cash and the most time and has the most talented homies, that's gonna win the bike because you've got like the best platers and the best powder coaters and you have the best, you know, you've gone through all the waffles or whatever. You've got all the latest bullseye, and you know you just a checklist. Man, I got my bullseye hubs. Check. This is polished. Check. Got this. Check. No one's seen it. Check. You know, and like all that stuff. It's just, it's hard for me to relate to it because it just sounds like there's no way to get in. And I kept waiting. I've been real quiet this whole podcast because I kept waiting for something to come back and go, where I could just say, Adam, how can we recreate that first show experience that you had where you're like, this is dope, dude. I found my people. Because it doesn't sound like the average person, right? Because our audience is primarily dudes like us that are 80s kids that found BMX again or stayed in BMX the whole time. And we're just like, dude, I'm kicking it with my homies. But yeah, hey, I like building custom bikes. But unless I'm one of the top 10 people, right? Because you guys, everybody's like, here's what I've learned today. Everybody's on a first name basis, right? So you can go Jake, and you all know who Jake is. I'm like, is that Jake the Violator? Maybe. I think that's maybe who it is. I don't know. And so, you know, you're like, so and so's name. And I'm like, the first thing I'm thinking is it's like us, Craig, with like the big bike scene where we're like, I could say just someone's Instagram and be like, oh yeah, so and so, so and so, so and so. Where it's like you guys are on a first name basis, so it's clearly this is a small community of like power builders that are competing at that level, right? That you know everybody's name on a first name basis like that. How do you make how can we involve someone coming back? Is it a new class? It's like, hey, you know, 2K and under? Do we start putting like, you know, like when if you're, let's say golf, everyone knows about golf, right? We could say, all right, man, this round we're all going to throw in $20 and we all have to play with everybody else's clubs and let's see who wins, right? And you start doing that to make it creative and fun. Maybe it's like like at work when I have to do web design stuff, there's a lot of times they'll be like, hey, who can make the sickest website under this many kilobytes? So you're out there trying to like, man, I got to try and make an image with just pixels, but man, that's going to add HTML. So that's that challenge, right? Maybe it's build a custom bike, or maybe there's a category where it's like, you show a custom bike that was a box bike when it started. Maybe it's something. Is there any hope for someone coming into the scene today that just came back, found bikes? They're like, dude, I had a Bassett. I used to race that. That's cool. I want to have one. Is there a place for them?
And I know, Adam, you're going to chime in real quick, but one of the things we started out with, Isaac, and I hope, Adam, I know you're chomping at the bit to get on this too. The category thing, right? So if in a perfect bike build world, what if they did go, Isaac, they go, okay, super builds here, stock custom, call it stock custom or something like that here, survive. And then that, cruiser category is, it's like its own bubble. And then you've got you could do a survivor, or, you could break out those bubbles, or at least create more categories, what I would think, to give those folks a chance. But Adam, I know you were about to chime in, bro. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I know at one point in time we kind of joked about doing like, so you guys have seen the hyper bikes from Walmart.
Yeah, the jet fuelers.
We kind of like joked about doing that. Like, hey, you've got to start with the hyper bike, and there's a cap on what you could spend or what you could do. Like, it never came to light, but like I know we joked about stuff like that. Or you got to buy your bike and from like there's like a cap on it of what you could spend. And I don't necessarily think that everybody has been pushed out, and if you have a big ripper you can't compete anymore. I just think that I really, going back to, we need to add a couple of categories, and then it will kind of separate everything and allow the people who have that badass big ripper that they chrome plated and still put 5K into, and it'll give them a chance to compete again if we add a couple of categories that separates the shit. Like, because these bikes have evolved so much and so quick, I just think that, like I said, like it kind of just pushed the people who aren't so now at this point in time, some of the shows, not all of them, it's basically pushed the people out that aren't into that style of bike or don't have the cash to spend on something like that. It's kind of just pushed them off to the side. And I think to make those people relevant again, or the guy, like I said, that has the one bike that wants to continue showing it over and over all over the place, I think that if we add a couple of categories and separate these badass builds from the average build, that'll kind of give everybody, it'll kind of just put everything back into perspective and allow everybody to compete on their own level of where they're comfortable or where they're, what they could spend. And like it really comes down to that. I think that if, like, whatever you want to call it, if you added a category and even maybe made a couple of subcategories out of that category, like best of paint, best of whatever, like, but really, that's what it comes down to. The shit evolved so quick, like it just, I always tell you guys, like, I don't want to sound like that guy, but like once I built that black and copper bike, if you ask anybody that was into building bikes around that time or even shortly after, like I set the bar, dude. I set the bar really high building that black and copper bike. I had a lot of the old school dudes that came to me that are like, well, at what point in time is it not a BMX bike anymore? And I go, well, at what point in time I took it on the track, so as far as I'm concerned, that motherfucker's a BMX bike.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So then cutting to it, then what classes? First of all, y'all got some good posture. I look like I'm 4 foot tall. All right. What classes do we add, Adam? Do we add like we added upper class and lower class? What do you think? I'm going to ask. Think about Adam, Gilbert. What do you think? Upper class, lower class? Like, what do we add?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I mean, if you remember back 2019, Adam, people were going into Bill's shop and buying box and putting them straight up in the lineup. They were just having fun, just showing their bike, what they bought, because it was about BMX, and there was dudes. I think that's when that blue OM came out, that electric blue with the little cheetah print seat or whatever. Dudes were putting them in the lineup. PK was there signing them, and people just went and bought a stand from Bill and went and put it in the lineup. So I think, yeah, definitely a category, like even like a stock category, on those older bikes, like someone come out with a 2012 that's mint condition, still got the nipples straight out the box, like that original class, and and then definitely I would say, break up, okay, you have like the limited class, Bill did, I think, like with Manhattans, he broke them down into, I mean, there's 20 of them, and he broke them up into like a little Manhattan class and best Manhattan. So then he kind of broke those up because those, I mean, how do you compete against the other bikes? So then he kind of took those out. So I think, yeah, then we need to take it a next step further and start, okay, if you have any type of, keep chrome still in there, but if you're doing like gold plating, black chrome, rose gold, those type of things, engraving, and then now you've just went into a whole nother class, because I think the whole point of it is it definitely turns into that swinging contest, and I think, yeah, like I said, we do it as like an art, Adam, definitely, I saw that black, rose, and I'm like, dude, how do you even compete with that, man? That thing is sick,
Right.
And then so that but then you're like, okay, well then I'm going to come out with this, and then we come out with this, and that's where it's just always been, who's going to top who. And I think, definitely that upper class would definitely help break up some of that, because the whole thing is you want people to have fun, man. You want people to come in. That's how, Adam and I got to know each other, from the shows. That's where you get these first name bases, because you're around sweating your butt off over there freaking in Riverside, and you're in there, chit-chatting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where you really get to know people. And if you exclude those type of people because they feel like they can't be part of it, it kind of keeps that same, okay, here he comes bringing that same bike. We're coming seeing the same bike, type of thing. So
I like the idea of that lower cap class, only because of this, right? I really appreciate when I see people's craftsmanship, right? Not that you can't have that in a $15,000 bike. I'm not saying that. But if you were to say, okay, you can only spend $2,500 on this certain bike, whatever, those guys, in my mind, from where I'm standing, they're going to they're going to take maybe that stock sprocket, and they're going to high polish it, and they're going to take the anodizing off, and they may do some custom tweaks and things that they really can showcase, instead of just buying the best of everything and bolting it on and going, there, I built a bike. Yeah, you did, but maybe in this other category, we really can see some of these artists, some of these craftsmen showcase their abilities with a limited valued bike. And I don't mean a cheap bike. I just mean they have only so much to work with. So now they have to do something to really make that thing stand out with their craftsmanship.
Yep. Adam, what do you think? What do you think the classes?
Agreed. Classes. And again, when we first started this, there was always a rider category, and I built my semi-famous Santa Cruz that I put all the purple parts on. When I built that bike, when I was telling people, I'm going to put all purple parts on a Santa Cruz, people were like, purple? That's going to look like shit. Well, I built that bike, and I truly built that as a rider. If anybody knows or has ridden with me, I rode that bike for that was the bike I rode predominantly for like 4 years. 3-4 years. But when I first built it, I took it and I put it in the rider class at one of Craig's shows. They didn't even take a second look at it, but I literally had just finished building it the day before. So the pedals were brand new, the tires were brand new, and I heard a couple of comments like, oh, you're sandbagging, you're putting a show bike in the rider category. And I'm like, no, this is a rider. And they're like, dude, there's no dirt on the pedals, there's no dirt on the tires, there's no this, there's no that. And then after that, I think that the rider category just kind of strayed away, literally after that show. But I think that there should be a rider category. I think that there should be a lower class box bike. You got to start with a box bike, and it's a $2,500 cap. I think that's a fucking great idea.
Yeah, I agree.
But I also, along the lines of, I think it's a great idea to add upper class too, like these new super bikes or whatever you want to call them. Like they're in a class of their own. They need to be their needs. If this is going to continue on, and everybody's still going to have fun, like Gilbert was saying, like these classes need to be. The classes need to be recognized of what you're building, and also the rules of brakes, chain, all of that needs to come into play, because you could, like I said earlier, you could build the baddest fucking bike on earth, but if your brake pulls sideways and your chain's loose and you have one flat tire and like you got a loose pedal and like all that comes into play. And I feel that these people are just like, oh, I spent more money than you, so I'm gonna win. But like all of these guys that are new, that are starting to put these shows on, I think need to recognize the way it was. It hasn't been that long, so I don't want to say the way it was back in the day. But like when I started this, I feel that all of those things need to be recognized, and that's what's gonna set Adam apart from Gilbert, because Gilbert stayed up all night and made sure everything was right, and Adam showed up to the show with a flat tire and a loose chain, and guess what? His bike was nicer, but his fit and finish was shit, and he lost the show. So, like, I feel that all those things need to be, along with the lower classes and upper classes, all these things need to be recognized when judging the bikes.
Yep. I would love to see something where there's some type of like entry level class. I like lower class is like we gotta really work on the branding here. But yeah, call it like an entry level class because I no 100%. I'm trolling you, dude. But here's what it is, because let's say I'm a fan of boxing, right? And you look at like boxing's popularity in the '90s because of Mike Tyson. And right now in the bike scene, if we were just to overlay it, my only option is to go. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna enter Tough Man, and Mike Tyson is in there too, right? And it's like I'm just gonna pay this money and just get punched in my mouth, and this is gonna be a horrible experience, right? But that's right, and so that's what I want for like BMX, dude. Like that, like the class where you guys are engraving and rose gold and that level, I want to see that progress. So I want to see you in a level where you can go toe to toe, entering that class. I'm bringing every nipple is in the same direction, and that thing is going to be pristine. And that's what I mean when the like you ring the bell and you're like, all right, judging opens. I want to see the curtain open on those bikes, right? Deservedly so because of the time and effort and energy that goes into them. But I do want to see the ability for the next Adam, the next Gilbert, the next Jake, the next what's the engraving guy's name? So I can at least call him by his name because I don't want to keep saying engraving guy. Do you know who I'm talking? Who has the engraved Big Ripper?
There's a lot of them now.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Oh, Fabian.
Fabian was the first guy.
Okay, so
Fabian was the first guy.
Fabian, yeah. Fabian is the one I remember. It's a Big Ripper, the first one that I saw. So
yeah,
the Grim Ripper, yep. And so
I think he's the first one that started that engraving on it when he came out, and yeah, that thing took show, man. But that was a whole nother category because then that's when everyone felt like, dang, now I got to come with engraved.
Right, and
so
he
rides the hell out of that thing. I see him in Indio riding the hell out of that.
Dude, I saw it in San Diego. That's like I saw it face to face, and I was just like, "Oh my god, dude, this bike is engraved." I didn't even want to walk by it in case I accidentally I'm clumsy, and I was like, "I'm not even walking by that bike." You know what I mean? Like that's the way I feel about some of these custom bikes, and they're out there riding them. So shout out to San Diego and the whole SoCal crew that rides your bikes. But so Fabian, I'm including you in that list of like top tier folks. There you go. You got my respect. So yeah, there's that. I want to see that. I want to see the next builders come in and have a seat at the table and a place to actually learn and evolve, and man, there's so much fun stuff you guys could do. Because this is where it's stemming from, Craig, and I think you're gonna agree. Is I'm sitting here with like my best buddy Craig, right? And we've met in person like twice. Rest of the time like that I've seen Craig is like on our podcast, right? So brotherhood, right? Then I've got Pastor Gilbert over here next to Craig in my screen, and then I've got Evil Adam on the right side. And so like in an everyday world, there's no reason the four of us would have anything in common. Yet here we are laughing, having a great time, relieving a bunch of stress, arguing about BMX bikes like we did when we were 14. And so that's what's so dope about this. And I don't want to see this experience that we're able to see now and the people that are listening on the podcast, I don't want to see them miss out on it because like, I got to tell you, dude, I know Gilbert, you've had a rough couple weeks. I've had a rough couple weeks. My buddy Craig had like strep throat. He had a rough couple weeks. Dude, like if I didn't have my buddies to call and just vent about whatever, like it's Halloween right now. You're going to watch this in the future. It's Halloween right now. My kids are chopping up foam in my living room, trying to make Ghostbuster costumes. And all I'm thinking about is like, I'm stressed at work and don't chop your fingers off. Right. But also, there's a lot of stress in my life, you guys. So like being able to kick back and argue about engraved bikes over rose gold bikes over, my stock SE, and my SE has no seat at the table, and maybe it does now if we have this like this more entry level class. I almost said it, so you know what I mean? So like this is the trailer park. I'll tell you something, dude. Like I'll wheelie my lower class bike all over the place. I'll do wall rides higher than anybody else. So that's the only thing I can come back to custom bike builders. It's like I'll out wheelie or I'll out wall ride you on my stock SE. That's like my one big burn I have back, and they're like, that's cute. But I love you guys. You guys build dope bikes, so you'll never hear me give you guys a hard time, but it's because I love you. You know what I mean? If I didn't, if I didn't care about what you were doing, if I didn't watch, I wouldn't have an opinion, and I wouldn't try and like jump in your conversation. But I think it's great. So always understand where I come from, man. I want to see you guys riding bikes. I want to see you enjoying it. And if jump here, I heard a great definition, man. You guys will dig this. Nostalgia is memory stripped of all the pain. And so you look back on, man, when we were kids, man, and we all had rough lives growing up. I know all of our backstories, yet we're all like, man, what I would give to be 1984 again. And, like you're like, I would give it my year's salary to live one day in 1985 all over again. And that's what we're all trying to do with these custom bikes, man. We're just trying to go to the show, to see your friends, show off your new parts. Man, that's the same shit we were doing. Like, you'd pull up to your buddies and be like, dude, look at my new CWs. And someone would be like, those are knockoffs. Those are walled. And you just put a CW sticker on it. Right? Yeah. We've all done it.
Oh,
we've all done it. So what do you guys like? I think I'll end it with this, Craig, and I want your opinion too, man. Like, I say your opinion because I just know where Craig lands on custom bikes, man. We're in the same. We're like, dude, let's just go ride. 5 years from now, if you popped into, I'm going to throw a made up name. No, you know what? I'm going to throw in, because they have a lot of old school people, I'm going to throw in Ohio, right? The Buckeye Bike Show. We're just going to go with that one, right? 5 years from now, in the Buckeye Bike Show, if there's big bikes and there's these custom bikes, what do you hope you see when you walk in? And I'll go Craig, Gilbert, Adam. What do you hope you see?
Yeah, man. So 5 years from now, dude, the one thing that I can say, being a kid, like you were mentioning in the 80s in BMX, it just what these guys are doing, Isaac, the builds, taking it always one step up, one more step. It makes it relevant. It gives validation to our scene. I don't know about bike building, and I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think I've tried to fake the funk, dude. I don't know about this. I've been asked to judge shows, and afterwards I'm like, did I know what I was doing, or did I just go with something I like to look at, bro? And that's honesty, right?
Yeah.
I think it was a little more than that, but what I think it is these guys they're adding into the scene, bro. They're continuing to make things real, customizing, making. When Adam says, "Oh, the next bike," when you bring that show winner back to the next show, and someone goes, "Oh, that's the one from the other show," but someone's got the new. And it catches the eye, that's because it does something that others haven't done before. And people are like, ooh, look at that. That vibe right there, to me, is super important, bro. That's what keeps these dudes building. And I want to make the next eye catcher. I want to make the one that someone goes, whoa. And the whole crowd goes from over here to over here, and they're looking at that bike. Now, I do appreciate, every bike. I've seen bikes from, the late 60s, early 70s come out, OG, survivors, they look like they were ridden hard, and those bikes are super exciting to me too. 5 years from now, and if Ohio was doing the Buckeye Bike Show with a big bike BMX category, validation, bro. That's like, it started out as an old school 20-inch bike show, and now they're including, let's say, all facets of bikes, all types of builds. Maybe they go to the high cap category, low cap, whatever it is at that point. It validates our scene and it keeps it alive, man.
Yep, 100%. Gilbert, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of echoing what he said. I think, just bringing that thing back with those different classes, and I think that gives everyone that true, inclusiveness with the whole bike scene, because, I mean, some people, they feel like, how do I compete, but if you give them a place to compete, then they feel that sense of like, oh yeah, this is cool. I can, shoot the breeze with Adam and, talk to Gilbert and, but also keeping that high class, because, you always want to strive for better. You always want to keep that, that, or maybe you don't, but you always have that option there to, continue to strive for better. You got, like example, you had Mark Zambrano come into the scene, kind of buying some people's builds, and then he starts building his own builds, and then you see kind of where he's going with like the plating and these type of things. So, you get bit by that bug. So to see that progression, I think that's something that's really good that I'd love to see, 5 years, because it definitely gives everyone that chance, like owning a limited bike or owning, that engraved bike or doing that thing. I think that's something that definitely I'd like to see in the 5 years for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. Adam, what do you think, man?
I'd like to see. Well, I'd like to see some of these, like you said, some of these people who put on these shows, these old school shows. In 5 years, I'd like to see them even recognize the 29
Yeah,
because it's even,
facts.
like as like more than you get a lot of these guys that are like, oh, that's a beach cruiser, and what I think is cool is you see a lot of people like Jacob Santos, yourself, out there really ripping it on these, and I'm like, oh, it's a beach cruiser, huh? He just did, a 20 stair
Rail. Yeah.
peg grind on his beach cruiser then. So I think that's like starting to shut people up, but I would really like to see them recognized as just the same as these 20-inch and 24-inch bikes are recognized. I'd like to see the 29s, and 26 has always kind of been borderline, but I'd like to see the 29s. Like Craig was saying, that just shows that we're relevant and there's progression, and it's all becoming part of the scene. That's what I'd like to see is 5 years from now is the 29s being recognized just the same as all the rest of them. Be able to go to a show, an old school show, and see 29-inch bikes there, because you go to some of these old school shows, there is no 29 category. Like you aren't like that's it. Like basically to sum it up, you're not welcome.
No, dude, I believe you're. I'm a flatland guy, bro. And 20-inch flatland, they don't recognize me at all. Like they literally, I'm like, literally, I asked like the dude that runs the AFA. I'm like, is like, because I just asked him like, is 26, 29 or big bikes BMX? He's like, nope. I'm like, bro, you run the American Flatland Association, and to be real honest with you, I'm like, dude, you should run a bike life flatland contest with some wheelies, because at this point, like, just being honest, the dudes that are doing flatland right now, there's about, let's say, 30 of them, and they're not young dudes. So you haven't taught any kids how to flatland on a 20-inch bike, but I've got 7,000 kids showing up to Santa Cruz. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be real. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see 29s. I will fight and I will argue about big bikes or BMX. Jacob Santos proved it. Todd Lyons doing wall rides on an OM Duro proved it. You guys building those bikes that you do, like, those are BMX bikes, right? I mean, you look at it and you're like, when I say you do, I'm talking like Gilbert rides. Adam, I've seen you're breaking cranks. We all know you break cranks, right? So, like, you're riding. And so that's what I want to see. In 5 years from now, I want to see the same thing that we have. I want to be able to, I want the next Isaac to meet his buddy Craig at that bike show and like connect and be like, dude, I used to look at magazines at the grocery store too, man. What was your favorite ad? Or like, what was your favorite sticker? Oh, I like the one that said freestyle. That was mine too, right? I want that experience for everyone to walk into those shows. I would love to see like a mentor newbie class where like Gilbert you don't provide the parts, but you mentor Craig. And then Adam, you mentor me on my build. Hey man, are you checking your brakes? Are you checking your air pressure? Are you doing this? Like, hey man, I'm starting to run out of money. All right, well here's some super cheap ways that you can do that. Let me show you some like the devil's nuts, right? You're like, okay, this is an easy way to add a little bit, like for $50 you can add color pops here, here, here. And that's what you need. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it, because like I promise you, if I enter a bike, it's gonna have like 30 different shades of purple, because like I'm like, it was purple, right? And you guys are gonna be like, dude, that's mauve, that's magenta, that's peach purple, that's this other purple, right? Someone like, I'd love to see a class where it's like someone takes somebody over. You guys just watch reality TV shows and copy that, because if 5 billion people are gonna watch an episode of like whatever it is, like Forged in Fire, Champions and Newbies, right? If 5 billion people are going to watch that on Netflix, trust me, it's a good formula that would work for a bike show that would make it entertaining for about 50 of us old dudes that are out here arguing over who's got the best cranks. So follow like what those trends are, man. I just want to see it more inclusive. I want to see it like more inclusive, easier to get into. And then the common thing that you said, Craig, Gilbert, and Adam, well, Adam, a little bit. Adam, you went into the 20, like, I want to see BMX recognized. And I love that because your passion. So I'm going to give it two things. I'm in the same category as Adam. So Adam and I are going to err on, I want to see passion in BMX. And then Gilbert and Craig, you both said the exact same thing. inspire. I want to inspire people with my builds. I want them to come in and see this, like, this was my vision. Oh, is that a clock? Do you have a goddamn Rolex on your bike? What in the world, right? That kind of thing. You want to inspire someone to go out of their comfort zone and go, yeah, you can add a watch to your bike and it's pretty dope, bro. Take a look, right? Oh, I never thought of that. So you inspire people with your builds. Adam, just thinking of like your color stuff. Like when I think of like you have the classiest use of color, in my opinion, on the builds that you do, because I look at it and I'm like, that still looks like a bike I would ride. It doesn't look like a parade carny bike, right? And that says a lot coming from the dude that's got like glow lightsaber wheels on my bike right now. So, like I like the way your subtle color. I love it. So that kind of stuff, like the inspiration that comes out of this, I think is beautiful, and that's what I want to enable the shit out of. I want to make sure that everybody feels welcome in the custom bikes. And kind of what started this. This is my little, thanks for coming to my TED Talk about what inspired this. But Craig and I were talking with my good friend Sean, who is a mechanic. He builds bikes and he's a mechanic. And his bikes are so dialed, dude. I've never ridden a quieter, better sounding bike. And he doesn't go for like, let me just make every part matchy-matchy. He goes for, let me make every part bomb that's going to handle what he wants to do. Like he loves manuals over wheelies. So he's like, I'm like, bro, you need to do this. He's like, no, I don't. Watch this. And he knows his bike. He knows every spoke. He is like every single part of that bike he has touched, and it wasn't just assembled. And I want to see a place for that guy to be able to show off his bike, because I want somebody to be able to see it and go, like, he made a Phoenix Ripper. He took an LA Ripper and he put the Phoenix. That. He put Phoenix like the Phoenix theme on it, head badge, everything. So it looked beautiful, but it rode crazy. Like it was insane the way this thing rode. He has a Race Inc. right now, dude, that is so dialed, and I'm like, man, I just can't get over it. And I want to see a place for him to be able to enter his bike and get the respect from other people that appreciate performance over, that's the latest Bandolero you just scored. Good for you. You got one of 50. You know what I mean? That's great, and I'm stoked for that, dude. But like, we got to make it so that the builders and not the assemblers can have something. You got to make it so it's inclusive for everyone to join and make it fun. And if we can do that, man, I think we're going to be here for a long, long time. And I everybody that's listening to this right now, I cannot wait to wheel our little Lark mopeds around the bike shows, talking shit to these new kids, telling them about they have no idea what the struggle is to try and find bullseye and profile during COVID, right? We're all going to be sitting around going like, we're going to be the COVID grumpy people that are just like, you don't know the struggle. You don't know the struggle. And so that's my vision. That's what I would hope would happen. But, Gilbert, thanks for coming. Adam, thanks for coming. That's I don't really have anything else to add. But Craig, ask your final questions. Send us out, brother. I'm excited. Thanks for doing this with me, Craig. Like, I've been waiting to do this for so long, dude. And like, I'm so psyched that we finally got to chit chat about like.
Oh
bike
man,
shows.
me too. And check this out, man. And Adam and Gilbert, first of all, thank you guys, man. Super stoked to have you guys on the show tonight. And we'll get your closing right after this. But Isaac and I, when we started this podcast, and whenever we brought up bike builders, bike builds, bike shows, we're just guys who don't know. We're laymen. We don't know what we're talking about, but we had an opinion. And it was just like, it was almost to the point of like, yeah, bike building, that's not us, and it's not really our bag, and we don't get it. We don't understand why you got to do this, why everything's got to be this shiny this and the engraved this, and you can't carry your bike over the lawn and set it down so there's no grass blades on the freaking tires and stuff, right? And we kind of low-key bagged on it. Over the years, though, talking about it, meeting guys like you, Gilbert, you, Adam, and all those other folks, Sean, and everyone mentioned here tonight, Fabian, we're getting it. We're getting it. This shit's relevant, man, and it's part of the scene. We were just on the outside bubble. We were on the fringe looking in. The more I participated in it, the more I got more interested in, well, how does this all work? I'm judging it, therefore I should know about it. So what you guys are doing, and we're talking about relevancy and passion, you guys are creating that, and all the bike builders, and even let's give some shout outs to these guys who are putting these bike shows together, whether it's a show you can enter, or maybe they don't include you. Maybe we can get them, those folks that don't include the 29ers, to see that we have a considerable piece of this pie and we want to be a part of their show too. Maybe in those 5 years that's what this comes to. But I want to give a shout out to the bike building community, the organizers, the builders, and everyone involved, because they're really putting in the time and effort to keep this relevant, bro. So that's where I'm at, Isaac. That's the way I'm going to close this out. Gilbert, let's go with you, brother. Closing for you.
No, man, I think we've touched on all of it, and like I said, I just really hoping that maybe everybody who watches this podcast will take it to heart and not take it to heart as constructive criticism, and just constructive overall, not like that we're talking shit or that I'm talking shit on their builds or how they're running their shows, because by no means am I doing that. Like I said, I just want to see it progress. The scene, I want to see it progress, and I want to see everybody to be able to participate, and I don't want people to be bummed out that feel like they don't have a place aside from us riding bikes or hanging out or being friends. When it comes to the shows, I want everyone to feel like they could participate. And with some of the shows that have passed recently, I did see a lot of feedback from people going like, yeah, I just decided to just pass on it, or I didn't feel that I belonged there. And I don't want to see that. I want to see everybody feeling like they have a place, whether it's the lowest category, the highest category. I just want to see everybody. I want to see the progression. I want it to keep going, but I also want to see everyone having a chance to be part of it.
Yep.
How about you, Gilbert, man? Anything that you want to close with, brother?
Yeah, I would say probably just that, man. Shout out to everyone that's come up on the scene. I mean, they definitely have changed it around, with their builds, making that level up. We definitely have to level up with the different things, but exactly what Adam said, make it fair so that way everyone's feeling welcome, want to participate, not feel like they have to drop that money, because not everyone's in the same boat, but you also want to be part of that atmosphere, be part of that crew and everything like that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, man. Like I said, I grew up poor, always wanted the cool stuff, and then, now that you got some money in your pockets, you can afford that. I know that feeling where coming up from them grassroots and being able to really kind of inspire people to, all right, cool, you know what, I can join in this. Oh, well, I started out with, a bully and some other, couple other bikes, and, that progression, man. And I think that's the biggest thing, and exactly what Adam said. It's definitely not a bash session. I mean, total respect to these guys and what they've done to the bike show scene and all this stuff. And I mean, they've definitely, you can see and respect the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. But yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we got room for, the Isaacs and the Craig that want to come in with their big rippers, and the Seans that want to come in with their bikes and, make them feel part of it so they can come and put their bike up and hang out and get to know everyone and kind of the community. So when they have those suggestions or those ideas, like, does this work? Does this not work? Nah, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? You can build that community with the people. And that's, like I said, going back, that's how Adam and I, met. We're at the show, back in the day. Actually, prior, maybe at one of his rides, but in passing, and then really kind of get to know each other at like the shows and that stuff, because you're sitting there for hours just chilling. So, I mean, you're going to, oh, man, that's cool, start, find out Adam makes all the decals for everyone. Then you're, secret DMing him, hoping he responds to a sticker kit for the show and all that other good stuff, But, yeah, respect to him, too. He definitely, with his company, he's, filled in some of the gaps with some of the jewelry and stuff like that. I remember back in the day when we were spray painting washers and doing all these different things to, make the stuff. He's identified little jewelry that he can put on these bikes and dress them up. And so, yeah, it's definitely a community where everyone's welcome, man. I'd love to see more people get out there and come hang out and, get to know us and all that other good stuff, man.
Dude, that's
amazing, awesome. Man. That's awesome. Well, Isaac, I'll pass it back to you right after this, but I want to say thanks to everyone who showed up here tonight at Big Bike BMX. on YouTube, especially everyone hanging out in the live feed, man. We appreciate all your comments, you guys. Thanks for coming out. Huge thank you and special shout out to Adam, Mark, and Gilbert Murillo for hanging out with us tonight. We can't say thank you guys enough, and stoked that you were able to come here and give us some insight and information and enlighten us on the bike build community, man. And if anything, what this podcast is doing for us right now is conversation, but hopefully those conversations will be carried on, and this, these things can be talked about, and all the perspectives we have will continue on to better this community even more from what it is now. And from that, thank you everyone for showing up here, man. We love all you guys. Isaac, I'm going to send it back to you to close it out, brother.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm just going to say the same thing. I love all y'all. Thanks for tuning in. And shout out to the shows. Thank you to Craig Turner. Thank you to Bill at Bassett. Thank you to the Goonies and the Blockheads and the BMX Beaners and the Heavy Hitters and every SoCal crew, SD Biking, and everybody that builds bikes to have fun. Whatever you define that to be, you inspire me, and I'm stoked you're here. Please understand that all of my opinions are just my opinion. I love your bikes, and I'm stoked you're here. So just know that. I just want to enable more of this community, man. Like I said, having two people like Gilbert and Adam who would never necessarily cross paths, meet in BMX, and have something in common and have that brotherhood, that to me is everything, you guys. And we're lucky to have that in our community. Fight for that friendship, fight for that community, build yourselves up. And I hope you consider opening up these classes so that you have a place to go and you have a place to showcase, and it opens up everybody else. And it's not just 5 people competing against each other. Some new folks are going to come in and challenge your skills, and that's what you need to be the best that you possibly can. Iron sharpens iron, or metal sharpens metal, right? We know that. Yeah. Let some new folks in, give them an opportunity, and I promise you they will challenge you beyond what you're feeling now, and the level of fun you're going to have is going to increase. So that's my hope. You guys have fun with this. Go ride your bikes, go build your bikes, go look for parts, whatever it is. Support your friends, support your local economy, support your local shops. Have fun. I will see you soon. Thanks for listening. Ba, ba, da, ba.